everyone, we are Lindsay and Dan from Follow Your Detour, and we are here in Livingston, Texas. And we're here not just because this is a great state park and we have this beautiful waterfront site. We have actually decided to come here to do our Texas residency as well.
And honestly, this is something that a lot of full-time RVers either talk about doing or want to do, changing their domicile to a more favorable RV state. And we actually wanted to do it for the whole last year, but the process just seemed really overwhelming and we weren't really sure all the steps to do, and it kind of just led us to do nothing. And so we finally decided we're going to do it, and we decided to come to Texas to get it done. And we want to share with you the exact steps in the process that we did to make our domicile or our residency in Texas, so that you guys can learn from it, and if you have any questions that you can get it done as well. Lindsay, you want to tell them step one? Sure.
So step one was to get a Texas address, which doesn't mean you have to come here and buy property. It's actually pretty easy just to become a member of Escapees RV Club, and within minutes of enrolling, they'll give you an address for Livingston, Texas. And then you can sign up for their mail services, and that's kind of the first place to get started.
And we had actually wanted to sign up for Escapees, and we had a little bit of challenge with the paperwork, doing it from Colorado and sending in. We forgot to sign a document. So there are a couple of forms that you have to fill out and get notarized, and so it can be easier just to come to Livingston if you happen to be in the area, but you of course don't have to. And once you get that address, that will serve for anything that you need to do from a residency standpoint. So that is definitely step one, and we were able to do that here.
So step two would be then to take the address that Escapees gave you and do a change of address through the US Post Office and any other accounts that you have.
So step three then is to change your insurance policy to Texas, so that you have a Texas insurance policy with all the right coverage limits, so that you can register your vehicle. Now, before you go register your vehicle, you're going to have to get your vehicles inspected. And you can do that at any state inspection office, and you can find that information online. Like, there's a bunch of different shops that will do it. We paid $7 per vehicle, but there's a couple things to keep in mind. We didn't know this, and we actually had a little bit of a snafu. In order to get your vehicle inspected, you're going to need a declarations page from your insurance showing your coverage level for the vehicles that you're getting inspected. So make sure you have that with you. We didn't, and it was kind of a last-minute rush to call our company and try and get everything worked out.
And this inspection is not an emissions test, which is kind of, I think, what we assumed it was going to be. It's actually a safety inspection. So they're going to check things like your brakes and various lights and your horn, and right?
Yeah, and another thing, just a good thing to be prepared for, we didn't know that. We thought it was an emissions test, so we had a brake light out, which was something that we absolutely could have fixed prior to getting it, but we failed our inspection, and then we had to come back the next day, just making the process a little bit more complicated. So just make sure your wiper blades work, your lights work, all of that stuff, and get any of that basic stuff taken care of before you go for your inspection.
After you get your vehicles inspected, you're going to need to get them registered at the tax office. We discovered, after driving all the way to Livingston, that you can actually do this through mail. The lady at the tax office told us that. It was kind of nice to be in person and just make sure you had everything you needed, but if that's not possible for you, you can do it through mail, and you can call them to get that process started. Anyways, when we showed up to the tax office, we had to make sure we had certain documentation in order to register our vehicles. So I'll let Dan tell you what you need.
In order to get your registration, you'll need the following documentation. You'll need your certificate of inspection for each of your vehicles, proof of ownership for each of the vehicles, so your title or the registration from your previous state, identification, your driver's license, an application for a new registration in Texas, which you can print off right from the tax office's website, and your proof of insurance. It's also really good if you already have that information in your Texas address. That does help.
Another thing you're going to need to bring with you to the tax office is a photo of your RV, as well as the weight information for your RV.
So you can do this in a couple of ways. You could get online and print off the specifications from the manufacturer's website, if you happen to have a brochure from your sales process that has that information, or you can also take a picture of the sticker that shows the dry weight and the cargo carrying capacity to come up with that gross vehicle weight. So if you're under 26,000 pounds gross combined, I believe, you have to get a different license, but if not, then you can just get your regular license.
So the final step in the process of becoming a Texas resident is to get your driver's license, which surprisingly was one of the harder steps for us, and we'll explain why. But when you show up to get your driver's license, you're going to need more documentation, of course. So here's what you'll need. You will need 2 forms of identification, 2 forms proving your Texas residency with your address on it. You'll need proof of insurance, your current driver's license, and then an application that you can get and fill out when you show up.
A couple of things that we learned through this process that we want to share with you are the best 2 forms of documentation to prove your address are your insurance, because you can get your Texas policy with your address on it really quickly, and then your registration. Since you have to register before you can get your driver's license, that will work. One thing that we learned though, and keep in mind, if you're in a situation where only one of you is on the title or on the registration, make sure that you have another form of documentation to prove your residency. In our situation, we went there, we got our registration, and it only had my name. That didn't work for her address because she only had one, which was our insurance. So if that's the situation for you, there are some other documents that you can bring to prove your residency, such as a voter ID card, but they might be a little bit more challenging to get, but you'll want to do that research ahead of time. You'll also need the 2 forms of identification, which you can clarify those as well.
So for your 2 forms of identification, you're going to need one of them to have your social security number on it. So you can bring your passport or your birth certificate, but you also need to bring a social security card or a tax form like a W-2 to prove your social security number as well.
And that's the area that we made a mistake at. We read somewhere online that we could bring something like an insurance card to satisfy that requirement, and it turns out that that wasn't true. That document has to have your social security number on there. So, you know, they did say like a Medicaid card or something like that would work, but what we did was print off an old W-2 and that worked. So if that's your situation, that will work as well.
So we've written a blog post where we have written down all the steps in getting your residency for Texas. Hopefully this video combined with those tips will help you to be fully prepared if you decide to change your domicile and become a Texan.
Yeehaw! And now that we've done it, it wasn't that big of a process. It was much more in our mind, and it wasn't quite as challenging as we had made it out to. So you can do it, and there definitely are advantages that, you know, you can read all about income tax and things like that. So like Lindsay said, we hope this video helps you, and we're excited to be the newest residents of Texas.